Kerbal Space Program. Jonny here, and when we left off last time, we had a pretty big success in our first big mission. We got science, and we got a lot of money here. Now what I've done is actually accept, we got a couple missions here, both from the moon. So one is exploring specific positions around the moon, so we got a nice hefty advance from that, and the other one is recovering scientific data from the surface of the moon, so we're actually gonna have to land on that thing. But before that, I kind of want to put some satellites in orbit, and the reason for that is I want to be able to send probes before I send out astronauts. We don't want to be completely reckless here. And so to do that, we need to advance a little bit in our science tree. Specifically, I'm interested in the electrics, which is gonna give us access to photovoltaic panels. So we're gonna be able to be self-sufficient out there in space and just recharge our batteries. We also gain access to some cool lights. And we got plenty of science here, so we're gonna go for that. And we can get something else as well. So we can choose between some more advanced rockets or some better fuel tanks. And I think I'm gonna go with this. Now you also get access to fuel ducts, and I'll explain in a little bit what they do, but they're actually pretty key. So we're gonna grab, oh, not enough science, okay. Gotcha, so we'll come back for that. Let's prepare a rocket here. So what are we doing? So today we wanna put our first satellite in orbit. And I think what we'll do here is just have a regular Kerbal satellite using the new technologies that we have. Now we also unlocked a new probe module. And this is quite superior to the other one we had in the way that it has SAS, stability assist, so it's gonna be easier to maneuver, which is great. Been a while, I forget the design we had previously that allowed us to make it into orbit, so hopefully I'm not screwing things up here. Looking at the delta V's, things look good to me, because this doesn't need to be in very high orbit. It can be slightly low orbit. So now all we're missing, I think, is just a few fuel boosters to get us off the ground. We're gonna throw 3 hammers and aerodynamics, and when we ditch these, we're gonna want some winglets to be able to maneuver in a stable way. And I think this is all we need, honestly. And I could be wrong. I don't know. And you know what? I think it's stupid to have 2 antennas. I'm pretty sure the relay antenna allows me to communicate with the probe. So we're gonna call this just relay satellites. Oops. Alright, so save that. Check our delta V's. This looks good to me. Okay, we check our staging. Make sure our second stage kicks in with the decouplers. Yeah, it looks fine to me. I'm gonna throw in a decoupler in here, even though we don't technically need it. It looks awful though. Fuck that. I'm sure we'll have some fuel remaining, so you know what? We'll throw it in case we want it. What are we doing? Yes, correct. Okay, let's save and give this a try. So, satellite deployment attempt 1. No Jebediah to help us this time. But, on the other hand, if we lose anything, it's just bits and pieces. No human lives. So we sail through the sunrise there. And again, the idea here is that we're gonna have a little bit of a satellite network that's gonna allow us to send probes other. Whoa! Okay. See, we have some stability problems there. So let's try to understand what's going on here. I think, and call me crazy here, what if I think the antenna was causing problems? Let's just call me crazy and just kind of stay with me here. We'll try it like this. Oh, broken by aero forces. Okay. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Yeah, I think there are issues with this. So I'll tell you what, we'll throw it on the side as we were planning to. We'll pack an extendable antenna in case we need it. And actually, looks like there were some issues there with stability as well. I wonder if it's just the fact. Yeah, I wonder if it's just the fact that we don't have an aerodynamic top here. I mean, this would look ugly as fuck. I don't want this in my satellite, but maybe what we can do is throw in a decoupler here and then a nose cone. Okay, this is horrible. Alright, I'll tell you what, we're gonna make it work like this. Let's go. Attempt number 2. Throttle up. SAS turned on. And we go. There's something wrong with our design. We're tipping a little bit there. This doesn't look good. So I thought we could get away with just having winglets in our second stage. But let's just take a look at our so, okay, I see. So this big ball here is our center of mass, and this little ball is our center of lift. So what's happening is that the air is coming in, it's hitting our vessel, and because these are kind of far apart, that's just tilting our ship. So let me just see what happens when I put this. Oh, okay. So I think maybe we want the winglets just a bit higher up. Trilateral symmetry should be fine. I mean, it looks kind of ugly, and I honestly thought that the lower the better in terms of winglets. But everything I know about everything tells me that the center of mass should be as close as possible to the center of lift. And so, even though it doesn't look quite right, I'm gonna give this a try. Okay. I mean, yeah, it doesn't look right, but just bear with me here. Let's give this a shot, because I do think it's important for the center of mass to not be that far away from the winglets. Ah, okay, it's still not working. All right, let's go back to the drawing board here. So we got some aerodynamic problems. Let's go back to having them at the bottom, and we'll try what do we try here? We can think of it a different way. We can actually just throw in another stage down there instead. We could even pack one of these. So it's interesting because we actually have less delta V with this giant solid fuel booster. We have less with this than we had with the other three. But maybe this fixes our problems with stability. So let's try that. I mean, this is kind of a learning process here. Let's see how that behaves. There's a slight tilt happening, which is triggering me a little bit. I'm gonna be real here. Okay, yeah, this is not good. And the thing I'm noticing is that it's tilting to the side of the relay antenna. Is it possible that the weight of the antenna is actually significant? How much does that thing weigh? I can't see. Not a lot at all. Let's try to just pack 2 of these, and we'll see if that makes a difference. I think it's definitely possible that that's causing issues. The fact that we didn't have a symmetrical setup. Dude, yeah. We're going straight up now. Well, kind of. We're going a little bit to the west, away from our velocity vector there. Interesting. Maybe it's because the thing is too long. I'm just trying to understand why it would tilt to that side specifically. It might be just because the top of our vessel is... Whoa, okay. So, okay. Let's go back to the drawing board. I don't like this, you know, this kind of long design that we have. I'm sure we can make it work with the trilateral boosters that we had. We just need better aerodynamics. Gotta make sure that the decoupler is actually linked to the parts. So winglets. Get big winglets, and maybe we get like smaller fins at least, just to control the initial stage there. Let's give that a shot. Alright, how's it looking? A lot stabler than initially. It looks like we're going pretty much straight up. So, okay, so it looks like we've resolved... Oh, no. Okay. I'm struggling to understand what the issue is there. So, whoops. So we have problems. I think it has to do, let's take a look at our center of mass again. So what's happening there is that at some point when our fuel is almost running out, let's say our fuel is like this. Yeah, I see the problem. That has to be the problem, isn't it? You see how when I control how much fuel we have, our center of mass actually moves away from our center of lift. So I think that, again, it just strikes me as very odd, because I thought that the winglets had to be as far down as possible, but is it possible that we need the winglets farther up? And when we reduce this, our center of weight is not that far away. And when we ditch these, they're still in a good spot. Yeah, I know this looks weird, but I think this is good. So let's cross our fingers. Attempt number 4, I think. This is science, trial and error. Once we figure this out, we're gonna be in good shape, but I do want to go through this process. Issues again. Alright, let's go back to vehicle assembly. Let's take a look at our original design for the moon flyby. So, again, let's bring up our center of weight. Whoa! Okay, so first thing we see is that our center of lift is way above our center of weight, and what happens is that even when these go down, so the fact that our center of lift is above would make this inherently more stable. Now let's bring up our relay satellite again. What happens when we just pop another fuel tank in there? I'm just trying to work out why exactly there's so much of a weight disparage. You see, that's weird to me, that there's such a big difference with the other vessel. What happens if we try to put some small fins at the top? It looks like that may help. You see, I was a little bit scared of having fins at the top, because what I thought is that the air would come in, would hit that, and then would just tilt our ship to one side or another, but it looks like this may actually help. It's funny because some of these things that I thought, such as the winglet's position and so on, are being kind of questioned, or at least they're being challenged by the reality of things. And let's see what happens here, because when these fuel tanks start emptying, do we tilt horribly like we did last time? We don't. Okay. Oh, we kinda do. Alright. Okay, so we can see a definite improvement there, but we can see that also when our fuel tanks are empty, we still have big problems. So one of the things we can do is take these and put them higher up, perhaps. Does that help at all? Well, I think it helps a little bit. Can they even go a little bit higher than this? I mean, the problem with this is that it looks kind of ridiculous, but it has the upside of not making us go into a tailspin, I think. I don't know if these little winglets do anything now. They do. Interesting. Alright, well, let's give this a shot. Now I realize by this point we're dragging on a little bit, but I'm very interested in figuring this out, because this is something we need to understand for all of our rockets. So some people might say that we've gone kind of backwards here because we had a working model last time, but I think it's pretty important to understand why it was working in the first place, instead of, you know, just accepting it as a kind of blind luck sort of thing. So yeah, somehow we've stabilized. Oh, we haven't. Yeah, you see, this is what I was saying, that the winglets at the top definitely will cause us to go into a spin. So I'm pretty sure that this is a terrible idea, having these guys at the top. Again, I'm not happy with this positioning here. This looks terrible. This just screams instability to me, is the problem. So, what is the effect of placing winglets on these guys? Might actually help. It still looks like when the tank is empty, this is just like completely unstable. And let's just prove that with a demonstration. So as our center of mass moves away from our center of lift, we're gonna go into a tailspin, I think, again. Or not. Okay, so that proved to be stable. Even though I thought the distance between the two centers were like too great. So yeah, so so things we've learned here. Okay, don't do that. Cut the throttle here. What are you doing? Trying to regain control here. So this stage should be pretty stable. I'm not too sure why it flipped out like that, to be quite honest. I'm very confused. And also, of course, as a result of our acrobatics here, we've lost like all our fuel, which is pretty sad. Can reduce the throttle a little bit. I don't know if we can make orbit with this, and honestly, even if we can, I'm almost tempted to revert because I want to figure out a stable rocket form. So yeah, 100 is fine. I want to go for a little bit of a bigger orbit this time. It's just the control of this thing is terrible. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I wonder if it has to do with the fact that we're using a probe instead of a human being. I wonder if that makes it less controllable or less stable. I think it's possible it does. But anyway, we can't control the ship at all if we don't have the throttle on. We don't have any RCS. So we're just gonna speed up a little bit. And we're gonna try to position ourselves along the horizon. We're gonna fire that up. Go into our final stage here. We got plenty of delta V on this one, so I think we're gonna be fine in terms of getting into orbit. But honestly, that was a really unhappy rocket design, so we're gonna have to work on that. Alright, so 200 kilometers. I think that's I'm happy with that orbit for our first satellite. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll circularize our orbit here, so we just warp to our apoapse. And then we burn prograde. Okay, here we go. So we just burned prograde until our periapse is roughly at the same height. Okay, we just gotta be a little bit careful here, make sure that we're circularizing. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this. And the good thing is also we have plenty of fuel in our tank still. If we wanna just shift our orbit in any way, we can. So we'll just do a little bit of burn here. Okay, so we got a pretty circular orbit. And should be able to turn on our lights. Look at that, beautiful. And yeah, deploy our antennas. So we have solar panels, we have our relay antennas, so now we have the ability to send out probes, and even if we lose direct contact with Kerbin, you know, the relay satellite should be able to provide a little bit of extra coverage. And again, we can adjust the orbit of this if we need it further away from Kerbin. For now, let's try to grab some science from this. 0 science? Are you kidding me? Log temperature. 0 science. I am distinctly unhappy with this. I'll tell you what, we'll just make a bigger orbit out of this. So let's just go. And the idea is that maybe if we're kind of further away in space, maybe we'll get more interesting science that we can beam back. So let's just find our prograde vector here. Man, this satellite is quite unwieldy to turn around. So let's just go here and control our fuel, make sure we don't use up all of it. But we want... how about that? That looks good. And we're just gonna circularize. Alright, we're there. Let's go prograde. There we are. And cut. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted. We're just farther away. So let's try to grab science again. Hopefully this counts as like a different region and we're able to grab some science. Yes! Beautiful. Transmit data. Transmit data. So we got a little bit of science. Log temperature. Nothing. Pressure data. Okay, some pressure data. Transmit. Cool. There's nothing we can do here, right? Yeah, okay. Well, I'm gonna still call it a success. We got our first satellite out there, and we can name it. And we're gonna name all of our relay satellites after famous cosmologists or physicists. So this one, our first one, what do we call it? We're gonna call it the Tyson Relay, for Neil deGrasse Tyson, of course. Accept. So there it is, and I'm sure it's gonna serve us well in the future. So we can go back to the Space Center. You can see we got a little bit of science there. We're back to 100 science. So yeah, I think we're gonna call it for today. I'm very mad at our rocket design, and hopefully we're gonna be able to figure out a stable rocket design for next time. But I think that's gonna be it for today. Thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you next time.